All right, Joe. Joe, where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up?
Brooklyn, New York, born and raised.
You're a Brooklyn boy.
Yes, sir.
Tell me about how you grew up.
We grew up in a tough Italian family, old school. Mother made sure that, we had everything that we needed. My father went out to work. Basically, my father wanted my mother to stay home while he worked. My father had a crazy life growing up also. My father, he worked for certain people in the neighborhood, if you know what I mean, certain people, doing jobs, collecting for certain people. If they didn't have their pay, my father would have to get a little nasty with them, like, kick their ass and stuff like that, just to make do for the family and stuff like that. And my mother knew what the deal was, but my mother kept her mouth shut because, my mother knew it was a living also, you know. And my father used to take, my father would come home with money after money and money. We never asked questions. My mother never asked questions. It's just that my father would say, hey, let's go out. Let's take a ride somewhere. Let's go to Coney Island. Let's go here, without asking any questions about it. And, my mother was grateful for that. And like my mother's like I said, my mother was very old school. So was my father was very old school. And my father was a Jersey man. And when my mother met my father in the city, where she came into the city, New York, and my father would be a bouncer because my mother would be with her girlfriend to watch. They would go watch wrestling events, and my father would be at this hotel where the wrestlers would stay, and my father would be the bouncer downstairs, and my mother would walk in every month because that's when they would have the shows. And she met my father there. My father would be like, "Hey, why are you dealing with these phonies for?" My mother was like, "Well, they're entertainers." My father goes, I'm a real man. Why don't you come with a guy like me?" So my mother laughed, and she took it, bluntly. But then all of a sudden, she seen how my father was this tough guy, but my mother liked that toughness of a person like that. And so I started dating and stuff like that. My father was a lot older than my mother. Like I say, about 15 years older than my mother. And basically, then I popped out, and my father, my father spoiled me. Growing up with my father was like, oh my God, it's like, Dad, can I have that? Before I even said it, my father, I would always have whatever I wanted because my father had my father had it. And basically, growing up with my dad was like, I tell you, it's like, you had these guys, we'd be sitting at the table, these big goons would come into the house with suits on, and you'd be like, Mom, who are these guys? She'd be like, Joe, when you get older, you realize who they are. And it's like these guys were like big, ugly dudes, and I'd be like, Mom, who are these guys? You'd be like, son, when you get older, you realize it. That's how basically when I got older, then I saw, you start watching these movies and you see the same stuff that was going on in the movies, and you start picking up, Mom, was Daddy in the whatever? And then my mother would say, yes, yes, yes. You got to keep your mouth shut. Keep this. Back in there, you always kept your mouth shut. You never told your friends. You never said anything. But your friends knew, and your friends were like your best friends because they knew your father was doing something, basically in the community, and all that stuff like that. But that was my father.
It's an interesting childhood.
Very interesting.
How far did you go in school?
How far I went to school? I dropped out of 10th. I dropped out of 10th grade to go to work because my father passed away when I was in 10th grade. So I was basically about 14 years old, and I just started, work. I started doing, odd jobs here, working for the guys in the neighborhood, doing these delivery stops and stuff like that. Take this over there, take that over there. Never told my mother. Until my mother one day goes into my drawer and she sees a big bankroll. She goes, Joe, you make more money than I do. What are you doing? So I would be like, Mom, I'm working for these guys. But she got very mad at me. But then she understood, you want to be like your dad. I'm like, basically, yes. Dad, my dad was like my idol. My dad was, forget it. My dad meant a lot to me growing up and stuff like that. And my dad was, oh my God. My dad, I could describe my dad as tough like nails. I remember one time there was this thing where there was no trucks allowed on the block, and my father would do these roadblocks where there's no trucks allowed on the block. And my father took a baseball bat to this guy's truck, and I was like, what the hell's going on here? So then I knew how tough my father was. My father didn't give a fuck about anything, my father. My father, bullets could fly off his chest. He didn't give a shit. As long as his family was full and they slept good at night and they had furniture and they had a roof over their head, and that was basically it. That's, and that's how I decided I wanted to be like my dad. And that's what I did when I dropped out of 10th grade. I started doing these odd jobs like that.
And what kind of careers have you had? You've had different jobs through the years, right?
Basically, when I first started, like I said, I started doing these little collections for these guys in the neighborhood, and until I got older, I started doing bigger jobs in the neighborhood, and it was basically like a debt collector kind of thing. And then me, I was always then all of a sudden, I was always a big fan of professional wrestling. That was my biggest thing because my mother and my family used to watch it all the time. And I said, wow, I like that. People getting beat up and that was my thing in the streets, fighting every night, fighting every day. And my mother would be watching this thing and I was like, Mom, I want to do that. She's like, you want to wrestle? I'm like, that's what that is, wrestling? She goes, yeah. So I would watch it every time. I said, that's what I want to do for a living. Until one day I went to a wrestling event and I see these two guys wrestling. But I see them talking before the event is on. I'm like, wait a minute, is this real or fake? Then I realized my mother told me the deal. I said, I want to do that. So I said, all right. So then I was starting the age now I'm hitting the age of 16. I went to a school and they was teaching you how to wrestle, and that's what I did. And I became a wrestler, and I've been wrestling for 23 years. And basically what I did in wrestling, I went into the ring not for the phony expert. I went into the ring to hurt people, where I can't get locked up. And that was the best thing that protected me. When I went into the ring, I beat up people where I couldn't get locked up. I took my anger out of people. When I was home and I took my anger out, I went to the ring and I took my anger out of people. And that was one of my jobs I did. And then also I was a bounty hunter. And I went to go out and I collected bounties for these agencies where if they borrowed money from the guy I worked for, it's like basically being a debt collector. But you're working legally. You're going to the people and you're going to collect that bounty. So my boss, the bondsman, wouldn't be able to lose his money, where you'd be able to go get that money for him, get these people, put them behind bars before they escape. That's what you do. And that was basically my two jobs I did. And then later on in life, I got into more crazier jobs in life. And that's what I did.
What kind of crazy other jobs do you have?
Bouncing. That's my present job right now. That's what I do. I'm a bouncer. I've been a bouncer for 25 years. Basically when I was doing everything from the wrestling, bounty hunting, and doing the collections, I became a bouncer at the end too. Also, it's about the physicality.
It's all the same skill set for all these.
Basically, careers. Yes, it is. But now these days, if you take somebody the wrong way, they got the cameras out. They're taking pictures of you, and for me, it's not hard to say, hey, he did it the way I look these days. And yeah, I just got to be careful. But working the nightlife for over 25 years, sometimes it gets to you. You have your good days and you have your bad days.
I'm sure you have some great stories.
Oh my God, I got some crazy, weird stories. Back in the day it was okay because back in the day where we had a different crowd, not like the crowds we have now. I would wear the same bloody T-shirt. Thank God it was black, bloody T-shirt, because I knew there was going to be a fight that night. I would wear the same shirt every night because tonight was going to be a fight, tomorrow was going to be a fight. It was like watching that movie Roadhouse, but it was a lot worse because it was Brooklyn, a lot worse than the movies. When people understand how bouncing is easy, you sit there all day, but when a fight comes, I want to see if somebody jump up in the air and start fighting. You think you're sitting there all those hours, you think it's easy. But no, it's not. It's like what they say in the porn business, porn shop. You don't know what's coming through that door until you get it, believe me.
You're dealing with the crazy people, drunk people.
Crazy, I call them misfits and morons. That's my saying, misfits and morons I deal with. Because they come in first thing they want to do is it's always the little guy. They try to size you out. They look at you, and they're the one you know already that's going to start with you because they want to see how good you are to see if you could get it on. But let me tell you something. I respect those little guys because those little guys are tougher than those big guys. And I tell you, it's the truth. I've seen little guys knock out guys bigger than me, and it's crazy. But I know how to handle it because I've been doing it for so long. And, I did special training for law enforcement. And plus also, I was a professional wrestler, so I know how to restrain people, basically.
Is there something, what is it about certain men, not all men, but some men just thrive on being tough, being strong?
They come in, they want to show off because like a business I work in a gentleman's club. So basically it's the women that are dancing, it's a topless joint. So the guys are going to come in, they want to show off because the girls are there. They're dancing and the guys want to be macho. But when they come through that door, they're going to see me. I'm like a roadblock. I make sure when you come through that door, you're going to see me and you're going to know who I am first. I'm not going to be an asshole, but also I want respect. The way I'm going to give you that respect when you come into the door, I want respect back because that's how this game is. And basically, if I see you doing something wrong, I'm going to come up and I'm going to say, hey, I'm going to give you one warning. That's what I'm going to give you. Usually I throw your ass out the fucking door with the door closed. But I'll give you one warning. Once I hear somebody say, hey, Joe, blah, 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 I'm going to come at you. And I'll take care of you. I'll take you down. I'll walk you to that door peacefully. But let me tell you something. That arm comes up and you swing at me, I guarantee you're not going to wake up the next day. I tell you that.
Who's the toughest person you've dealt with?
Toughest person I dealt with, 8 guys at once. Long time ago, these guys walked into the club and basically they started a little problem in there. And what happened was we took the fight outside because, you have a lot more room on the outside. And basically I was stuck outside, by myself with these 8 guys. And, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm not bad. My father always told me, if there's more guys there, you fight dirty. You got to do what you have to do. And if there's more guys there. So basically I'm fighting, I'm punching, I'm feeling, I feel my hands wet because I feel blood on my hands. I'm getting hit all over the place, blah, 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 boom, boom. And and all of a sudden I turn around, I see 3 guys on the floor. I was like, oh, okay, wow, okay. Then I see, 3 guys on top of me. Then the cops came and they were like, who did this? I'm like, myself. I did this myself. And the cops are like, bullshit. I'm like, look on the camera. They seen the camera. This is my place. I got to support my family. I'm not going to make these guys walk into the place where I work to take the food off my table and pay my electricity and pay my rent for these clowns like that to come in and try to take it away from me. No. And I want them to respect this place because without this job, I can't live, I can't eat, I can't pay rent, I can't do this. And to put a roof over my family's head without no job. But these guys came in, when they knew what they were going to do when they came. And I already see what they were going to do. Because basically I've been doing this for so long and I knew when there's a guy going to come with the experience I have, I know what's going to happen before they even know what's going to happen. When they're not even thinking about what's going to happen, I already know what's going to happen. Because I'm already a step ahead of them. Because once they walk in, they start looking at the place, they start looking at cameras, I already know what they're going to do. Because when you first walk in a place like that. And that's what happened to those guys. But they never came back after that.
I wonder, being a tough guy is part of your personality. It's in your blood.
Being a tough guy, it's not being a tough guy, but you know what? I was always a street person. I was always on. When my father died, me and my brothers were street. I had 2 brothers. One passed away at the age of 19. He had a brain hemorrhage. So it was me and my brother. Me and my little brother Anthony. So but basically me and my brothers were street guys. We knew what to do to survive on the street. So basically, being a street person, you gotta have street smarts. You gotta be 2 steps ahead of the other person. So basically, me and my brothers, we always fought in the streets. They're like, oh, Joe, Mike, and Anthony? Yeah, we know them. That's the boys, that's the boys from the other side of Brooklyn. Yeah, we know who they are. Well, don't fuck with them, we already know about those guys. And like the people on the block, when they always had a problem and on the block, they would ring our bell just to help them out with a problem because they already knew how we were. Especially when it comes to our block, it was like me being in the club. I'm protecting the club. Me, I was born and raised on that block for 47 years. So that's my block. So we're going to protect that block. So that's why being a tough guy is not being a tough guy because let me tell you something, there's always a tougher guy above you. There's always a tougher person above you. And being tough is just that. It's not my person. I guess being tough also is from being a professional wrestler, playing the bad guy in the ring, persona. I guess that's from being a tough guy. But my heart and soul being tough was because of my father.
Would your dad be proud of you now?
Oh, yes, he would. Yeah, because number one, he sees that number one, I'm protecting my family. He said, always protect your family. Always. That's number one. And number two, you got to protect yourself. But your family, to him, like people say, always protect yourself first. But my father was one, I got to protect my family first, then me. That's what my father always said. And my father was so damn proud. My father was 65 when he passed away, and I was 14. So my father showed me a lot since I was, being on this earth. He showed me a lot all the years, since 14 years, he showed me a lot. He showed my brothers a lot too, but not too much when he passed away because my father was in and out of jail, basically when my second brother was born because of the stuff he was doing. So him and my middle brother wasn't too, he didn't know my middle brother that much, but they got along, of course. But then the baby came, Anthony came, he was always home. So Anthony was like, my brother Anthony was like, he was his pride and joy, and that was great. But when your first child comes out, the first child, that was me, it was like the spoiled one, the big one. This is going to be the one, this is going to be the one that's going to be like me, and I'm junior, so I have to follow that, senior. That's what he liked about it. We never had no sisters, so my father was always happy with the boys because he knew what he could do with the boys.
Do you have any regrets in your life?
Regrets in my life. Basically, not finishing school. I think not finishing school. I think that would be my regret in life. Not finishing school.
It kind of sets your life on a different path by not finishing high school, doesn't it?
I think not finishing. I think just I had a lot of time on my hands also at that young age, and plus when I was doing these jobs, for these guys, I was stuck to those guys. I couldn't. Those guys were like, that's like my family. When they called me, I had no choice to leave my house and go there at a young age. I had no choice. But then it was getting to me at that young age where I didn't want to do this, but I had to, but I had no choice because I already know, and they already knew. I knew what they knew, so I had to do what they asked me to do. So that's why I regret it. I should have stayed in. If I would have stayed in, but then also I said to myself, if I didn't stay in school, how would I help my mother out too? It was like I regretted not finishing school, and then I regretted, and then not supporting. Then I'll be like, I'm not helping my mom out. It was like this for me. It was like juggling bottles, But I managed. I wound up managing.
Was there an opportunity to join in those organized crime?
No, basically, when I growing up, you start learning more, reading newspapers, knowing people who got in trouble, knowing that what happens, what's the rules and regulations and what's this and that. So that's when I start calming down. But basically, the people I worked for, they're all gone now. They're all passed away. They're all gone. So, they took good care of me.
Did those organizations still exist today?
They very low key. They're very low key. You don't even see them anymore. I tell you, back in the day, you would see them. They would be sitting outside, with the friends, outside the clubs, playing cards. And those were the guys you respect too because they're protecting the neighborhood. You could walk past them at 1 o'clock in the morning, nothing happening to you. That's what a lot of people would say, and it's the truth. But you don't see them anymore because there's a lot of punks out there I call them a lot of scumbags that right away wannabes, these young guys, they want to be in this life, but then when they get caught, right away they say, oh, he did it, he did it, he did it. And right away, because they can't face prison life. And prison, I never, like me, myself, never stepped in, never went to prison. I was never in prison. I always kept a straight head. I always knew what to do, what to say. And you always got to keep your mouth shut, especially when you're in this business. You don't know nothing. And and the cops knew and who was who in the neighborhood. They knew. I'm not stupid. They knew what I looked like. Walking down the street with tattoos on your head, walking this, walking that. They knew who you are, who I was. So, and they knew I wasn't a troublemaker. I was doing my job. I wasn't hurting nobody until a certain point where I started hurting people. And because also, like I said, it's a living you got to make. At that time too, at a younger age, there wasn't that many jobs, and I wasn't qualifying to work this and work that. I was a longshoreman. I worked on the docks. It's like watching a Rocky movie. I was basically the Lost Rocky or something like that. I basically worked the docks. I worked in a meat packing plant. Not that I want to be Rocky Balboa, no, but I did a meat packing plant because it paid, picking up raw meat, plus I had to keep my body in shape too, doing all that stuff because I was also a professional wrestler. So what I was doing now I was basically exercising my body, making my body strong by lifting up raw meat, putting them on hooks, wrapping them up, and working on the docks outside. Again, too, you're picking up heavy things, you're doing this, you're doing that, just to keep my body straight, just to keep my body tough, because I had no time being in the gym because I had to work also. So basically, well, my job was basically picking up heavy things, doing that, blah, 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 boom, and that was my weight training for me until I, went into the ring and did my job. But basically, like I was saying before about getting into trouble and stuff like that, like I said, I've never been to jail. They already knew who I was. And they knew I wasn't a troublemaker. But when it came down to it, when I had to hurt somebody to make my money to support my mother too, I'd do whatever I can to support my mother.
So when you were collecting,
I was yeah.
How do you go about getting what you?
What happened is that the person I work for, they take bets, and basically you take a bet. Now the guy owes my boss money from a bet, or he borrowed money. And then they pay a vig and stuff like that. Now you got to go collect that money now. He says, I need that money by July 6th. July 6th, you don't have that money, I'm coming for you. And they're going to give you, my dog is sick. My mother is in a hospital for hemorrhoids. I can't be with my mother. But they give you the line of bullshit they give you. They give you some line of bullshit, but then you have to give them a little tape up. A little tape up is, you got to give them a little slap, give them a little bruise up, so you know you did your job. But now the second time comes, now you're gonna have something broken on you. You have a broken finger. Now you don't want to know what the third plan is. Third plan is that you're never gonna walk again. That's the third plan. You have a choice: slapped up, broken finger, or don't wait, or not walking anymore. That was my thing. But I had to support my mother.
And to take care of the legs, you use what weapon?
The worst thing you do is to pick up. You hurt somebody, a piece of iron. That's the best thing. You pick up a piece of iron, like aluminum baseball bat. I'll do it. You break a knee. Just give them a little sample. Just make them feel that pain. And I guarantee you, and it happened. Then next day comes, I got your money. I didn't have it. Your money's there faster. Now I would tell the guy, why couldn't you do that sooner? You wouldn't have to go through this. Why couldn't you go through it sooner? But you know what? That's life. That is life.
What's been your favorite memory from your life?
My favorite memory? Family. Christmas time, being with the whole family. Easter time, because big Italian tradition. Sundays, big Italian dinner on the table. Macaroni, gravy, meatballs, sausage, all that stuff with the family. Holidays, same thing. just being with the family. That was my thing, being with the family. On holidays, we had a big giant table with 50 people at the table. Now it's basically me, my wife, that's basically it.
You have no kids.
My kids, I tell you, my kids are my cats. Let me tell you, I have a big heart. And I don't call them animals. To me, they're my children. I call them the children. My cats, dogs, cats, raccoons, whatever you want to call, they are my children. I have a big heart for them. And I will destroy somebody if I see anybody hurt the children. And I do, my heart every day is, I make 10 stops a day, and this is no bullshit. I make 10 stops a day. I feed strays outside every day. Every day before I go to work, every day. And I feed strays. And that's what I do for a living. That's my life. That's what I do for a living. And I have no problem to feed the children. Because, the way we eat, they got to eat too. They suffer because they're outside. We don't suffer. They don't know how much love we love them. They don't know how much, they get hurt, God forbid, they get hurt out in the street. They don't know how much we love them. But that's my heart. I melt for them. But other than that, I'm the biggest tough guy you would ever meet.
You got a big heart.
I have a big heart. I'm a big tough guy too. But when it comes to them, I melt when it comes to them. But I'll tell you one thing. My wife, she has a big part of this too. She saved my life a long time ago too. Because after I retired from professional wrestling, I blew up to 600 pounds. And I couldn't walk. I couldn't do nothing.
You were 600 pounds.
I was 606 pounds.
Wow.
I couldn't do nothing. I was just like in a fucking... I wouldn't be talking to you right now, Mark. I wouldn't be talking to you. I would be in a fucking box. My wife says, "Oh, Joe, we should go maybe talk about surgery." I would laugh. Yeah, whatever. So one day I woke up. I said, you know what? Let me get this surgery done. I wound up doing I went through their this and that. You got to go through the red tape and stuff like that. And they give you this probation period. You got to give you 6 months. You got to make sure you do all their things before the surgery comes. I did it. I lost over 315 pounds 6 years later. I lost 215 pounds. And I feel like I'm a fucking animal right now. But, little things stop me here and there for a little ouch and udges from being in the wrestling for so many years. You have your bad back, you have your bad knees, but you know what? You still got to go with the flow. But I feel a lot better. I'm stronger.
How old are you?
47 years old. 47. I'll be 48 next month.
Still a young man?
I'm a young man. I still have a lot to go. But I tell you what, I thought I would never be hitting 50, I tell you that. But I think I'm going that way. But I always thought I would never be able to hit 50. That's how bad and people don't realize being 606 pounds, it's like being 5 people. It's like being 5 people.
It's a lot of energy you have to spend just to get around.
Right? But I pulled myself for a guy my size, being 5'11", 5'10", 5'11", having that weight, you're pulling. It's like pulling a fucking car behind you. It's like seriously like pulling it. But you know what? You
probably get very strong pulling all that weight.
Yes, I always kept strong with I always kept myself physically strong because from the years of wrestling, I always kept myself physically too because of jobs I did. Also, you always got to keep yourself physical. When I got sick, I never told nobody I was sick because it's like having you have a broken spoke on a tire, the tire ain't going to go that well. I never told nobody, hey, listen, I'm sick. Then they're going to say, oh, this guy's not going to be able to work for us anymore. I never said nothing to nobody until that one day, I said, I need some time for myself to take care of myself. And, then when I came back 3 years later to my job and, unveiling myself the way I look, it was like, wow, is that Joe? People to this day are like, hey, do you see the guy with the tattoos on his head? Does he still work here? Because I wear a hat sometimes to play it off. I'm like, no, I haven't seen that guy in years. Because that's the person you don't want to talk to. Because he'll have your head all day, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, so people, that's good when people don't recognize you anymore. And you did something right. But other than that, I feel great. I feel strong. Like I said, the knees and the back hurt sometimes, but probably in the near future be a knee replacement. But
what's your greatest strength?
My greatest strength? My greatest strength would be 2 things. It would be my wife and my children, my kids. That's my greatest strength. They give me strength. If my mother was here today, let me tell you, and I wish she was. I mean, my mother was like, oh my God, my mother was my best friend. I mean, my father was my best friend. My mother was here long. My mother died years ago. She was 65. She was very young. And that story right there, when I got sick and I was in the hospital, she got sick and she was in the hospital also. And it was hard because to this day, I think God took her and she wanted me to stay down here to live my life. I think she wanted, she knew she was sick. She knew, and she wanted me to stay down here, and she wanted to go because she was probably either her or me. So she chose to go, and I still believe in that sometimes. She wanted me to be down here and live my life.
Of all the different careers that you've been involved in, what was the hairiest situation you've ever
The hairiest situation?
found yourself in?
I tell you, the hairiest situation, it wasn't even in my jobs. It was basically outside my job, basically. It was basically over a freaking parking spot. That was the best. You get these guys, you double park, and you get these guys, they think they can make it through. They can make it through, and you tell them you can't make it. They're driving, they're driving a freaking Mack truck, and they can't make it, and they of course they hit your car, and that was like my hairiest thing. I grabbed the guy. The worst thing, I didn't even know he had kids in the car. I pulled the guy right out of the car, right out, and this guy was a tough guy too because he was mounting off, but he was mounting off behind of a window of his car. So I punched him, I broke the glass, and this is no bullshit. It's like watching a movie. I pulled the guy right out of the car, and his wife was there, but I didn't know his kids were there until I heard the kids crying. But you know what? He's going to learn, but then his kids are going to learn too. Never do that too, because look what happened to daddy. But that was the most hairiest thing. Besides, I'm not going to say, somebody pulled a gun on me when I was working in the club years ago. Years ago. Somebody pulled a gun on me because I didn't let him in because he had no ID. This was another place I was working in. This is about 25 years ago, 30 years ago. And the guy pulled a gun, he put the gun to my face. And you know what? I said to the guy, again, this is no bullshit. I said to the guy, you pull it, you pull it. If not, what do you want to do? We're going to dance. The guy was more shaken with that gun in his hand than I was. Because the guy seen the face, how I was. My face was glass. My face was blue. His eyes, my face was like a glacier. My face was like red. I said like red. You're going to pull the trigger or aren't you? Once they hear that, because they expect you to be scared. I wasn't scared of that. I was never scared of that because, like I always say, you die, you die. Remember, if God's going to take you that day, He's going to take you. But the guy wound up running out. But it shows that I have the only fear I have right now is basically losing my family, more family. That's my fear. Losing my wife, my children. That's my fear. That's the only fear. Fighting wise, fear, beat up. No, it's just that's my fear of losing my family. That's the most fear I have in life.
Joe, what would you say is the most important lesson you've learned in your life?
The most important lesson I learned. Let me see. I'm gonna give you the best one I can give you. Like my father always said to me, when you walk down the street, always look straight. Never look up, because when you look straight, that's where all the action, that's where everything is coming to you. He goes, once you blink an eye, you don't know what's going to happen to you. My lesson, because one day, when you look, these people right now, they have their cell phones on when they're walking in the street, they get hit by a car. Me, my father, my lesson is always look straight in life. Basically what I'm saying, look straight in life. Never blink, never close your eyes, because you don't know what you're going to miss in life also. Keep your eyes open. That's how I always see it. Keep your eyes open, because keep your eyes closed. Like where life right now is, you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. Always keep your eyes open, because you don't want to miss that big surprise you're going to get one day. That was always my lesson. My lesson is just like keeping my eyes open. My father always told us.
All right. Joe, thank you so much for sharing your story.
You're very welcome, and it's my pleasure.
I wish you lots of luck.
Thank you so much. Thank
Thanks
you.
now.